Good evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, Senate opposes sale of national assets by the federal government as a way out of economic recession. Pension and financial experts across Africa brainstorm on getting the pension administration systems right towards mitigating retirees' hardships. Election observers ask voters in the Edo State governorship polls to respect the rule of law. INEC and security agencies asked to ensure credible election. And a Malian Islamist militant jailed for destruction of ancient landmarks in Timbuktu.
And on business news tonight, foreign airline sales revenue in Nigeria drops by 50% since June this year.
And on sports news tonight, Sam Allardyce steps down as England manager after just 60 days on the job over unethical conduct.
Linda Akibe. EFCC arraigns former Chief of Naval Staff Vice Admiral Usman Jibrin and 2 others for criminal conspiracy and fraudulent acquisition of property.
We begin tonight in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where members of Nigeria's Upper Legislative Chamber have rejected the proposed sale of national assets by the federal government as a way out of the economic recession. At the beginning of legislative proceedings today, the Senate passed a recommendation opposing the plan. The lawmakers have also approved a recommendation that the National Assembly should amend Section 162 of the Constitution to give legal backing for the executive to save some money for periods of economic slump.
Mr. President, if there's another recession in 15 to 20 years' time, what will...
For 2 days last week, these federal lawmakers debated the state of the Nigerian economy. They have returned to examine all the recommendations which many of them put forward to get the country out of recession and on the path of economic growth.
We are all aware of what has happened to our economy.
The chairman of the ad hoc committee, which compiled all the recommendations, reads the report prepared by the committee.
Prepare an economic stimulus bill containing all the fiscal stimulus packages, investments and incentives designed to pull the country out of recession to the National Assembly for accelerated consideration and passage. In order to avoid flooding the market with excess liquidity, release of low-interest funding under the stimulus package should be calibrated, targeted, and monitored in favor of specific industries and projects that add value to the economy by way of job creation, cost reduction, and import substitution.
Done with the report, it's now time for lawmakers to vote on each of the recommendations.
Fiscal and monetary authorities must meet harmonized policies that will lower interest rates. Anybody, those in favor of recommendation 2, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
It was then time for lawmakers to vote on the recommendation for the sale of government assets.
The additional prayer will read that the Senate is not in support of the sale of the national assets. Those in favor of the additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
I'm sure you all know my own personal views on some of the recommendations, but I think democracy is working here and we must accept that to work, and that is part of why we all subject ourselves to this.
The lawmakers agreed to enact a legislative framework with timelines for certain key government policies in the areas of agriculture and solid minerals development. They also resolved to prioritize the consideration of bills capable of reviving the economy and providing a favorable environment for local and foreign investors. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Staying with the Senate, it launched a probe into the alleged repatriation of $13.2 billion from Nigeria by telecoms firm MTN. The sponsor of the motion, Senator Dino Melaye, accuses a top government official of assisting MTN in transferring the said sum without authorization. Our correspondent, Linda Kigbe, reports.
This performing Senate notes with serious concern the repatriation of $13.92 billion illegally out of Nigeria by Mobile Telecommunication Limited, MTN, through its bankers between 2006 and 2016.
Weighty allegations made by a federal lawmaker during Tuesday's legislative proceedings. Senator Melaye, who accuses a key government official of assisting the telecom company to illegally move the money out of the country, gave a breakdown of how the money was repatriated through 4 banks.
Mr. President, alarmed that the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Okechukwu Elenema, owner of Cell Telecom Investment Limited, purportedly claimed to invest in MTN on the 7th of February 2008, got certificate of capital importation and filed Form A on the same day, 7th February 2008, closed his investment in Nigeria after receiving dollars payment for repatriation to New York on the same day.
The matter is not subjected to a debate to allow the Senate to investigate the allegations first.
They must be investigated because it's the principle of the use of the CCI. I must get to the bottom of it. But I think it will be presumptive of us to go into any conclusion until we get to the end of that investigation. So let's go to the prayer.
The Senate directs its Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions to investigate the matter and return to the Senate. The upper chamber, however, did not give the committee a time frame for presenting the report. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
Senior the nation's capital, pension and financial experts have been speaking on what must be done to ensure an effective pension administration system across Africa. This was made known today at the World Pension Summit Africa Special in Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. Some participants have also called for consistent enforcement by regulatory authorities.
This is the 3rd consecutive World Pension Summit Africa Special holding in Nigeria. The meeting has been consistent on the backdrop of the country's pension reform, which dates back to 2004. This year, attention is placed on pension innovations, the African perspective.
The success stories of emerging industries and smaller innovative initiatives such as a portable irrigation technology helping sub-Saharan Africa smallholder farmers grow crops out of season. These innovations undoubtedly provide the foundations for transforming the continent over the next decades.
Your payments, your internet connection, your social connections, every possible matter is available in your hand. That's the advantage of smartphones, literally. Also, your pension could be in your pocket. That's one of the options.
Present at the meeting is former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who approved the reforms 12 years ago. He asks pension regulators and operators to be cautious with their innovations.
I understand that the salaried people that have been captured are less than 20 million people who are estimated to be on salary. So part of the innovation, part of the issue that I hope you'll be discussing in the next 2 days is how do we capture more of the salaried people within the pension scheme. But I will add 2 things. Your innovation must be with caution.
With pension funds at about 6 trillion naira, the representative of the president and head of civil service, Mrs. Winifred Oyoita, seeks the advancement of the Nigerian economy with the assets.
Permit me to note that Nigeria, and indeed most African countries, are facing many challenges in the areas of the economy and security. These challenges heighten the demands on our meager resources and constrain our pursuit of infrastructure, which is traditionally seen as the sole responsibility of government.
The two-day meeting has attracted delegates from around the world with hopes of tackling a wide range of issues in contributory pension in order to enhance sectoral transparency.
Joining us now to discuss further the World Pension Summit holding Africa Special holding in Abuja is the CEO of the World Pension Summit, Mr. Chris Bataga. He joins us from Abuja. Mr. Bataga, thank you for joining us on the news at 10. This year's summit, what is the center focus? What are representatives deliberating on?
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. The purpose of the summit is to bring together leaders from around the world to share the innovations in pensions. And we have many global delegations and many leaders discussing some of the problems and some of the solutions from around the world. And of course, this year's theme is pension innovation in pensions. And as you've heard from many of my colleagues, the technology and ways that we're looking at covering the informal sector, specifically in Nigeria, is of great interest, because the purpose is to try to get as best coverage and as much inclusion as we possibly can.
What improvements have been made in the pensions market in the last 3 years since the World Pension Summit has been holding?
So over the last 3 years, there's been, I think, many developments. Obviously, there's been economic developments and developments in innovation, and the world is obviously changing in the last 3 years. You have a global interest rate environment, which is the lowest it's been in the history of long-term interest rates. You have demographics that are driving incredible change around the planet. So there are more of us getting older, and that means likely having to work longer years in retirement, having to save more for retirement, and also looking at more innovative ways to invest the capital, the pension capital, for retirement. In Nigeria's case, it's very important to take a look at what capital can be used and be deployed as a catalyst for the economy, particularly in the infrastructure areas.
I'm glad you mentioned Nigeria, because that's where my next question goes. To the Nigerian pensions market compared to its neighbors, how would you rate that?
Well, I think that the National Pension Commission has made incredible progress, a little more than 10 years old. And I think Nigeria tends to be very introspective, as it should, and maybe perhaps a little too hard on itself. The pension story and the pension provisions are a very long-term process. And in many developed countries, it's been going on for decades, if not almost a century or more. So I think that Nigeria has made terrific progress. Of course, the National Pension Commission is providing security and assurance, and it's law in Nigeria in terms of doing that. So it's a very significant accomplishment, and the significant accomplishment is also in covering the number of participants that it has. So I'm incredibly optimistic for Nigeria, and I think it's in a very competitive environment, obviously with Africa and other countries, but it has made significant progress.
Thank you for joining us on the news at 10. In part 2, after the break, we'll be looking at the last-minute arrangements in place for the Edo State governorship election in just a moment. Please join us again.